Welcome, dear listener, to a world where imagination knows no bounds and every story has a heartbeat. Here, we weave tales that transport you beyond the ordinary. Whether it's an epic adventure, a quiet moment of wonder, or a tale of mystery, we're about to embark on a journey like no other. Get comfortable and let your mind drift into a story that awaits just for you. This is where every story begins and where your imagination takes flight. Once upon a time, the wife of a rich man fell ill. When she felt that she was about to die, she sent for her little girl and said, "Dear child, when I am dead, be good and say your prayers every night. Then God will always take care of you, and I will look down from heaven and watch over you." After the mother had closed her eyes in death, the little girl used to go day after day to her grave. She never forgot those last words and was always good and gentle. All through the winter, the mother's grave was white with snow, but when the bright sun of spring came, the little girl's father had married again. This stepmother had been already married and had 2 girls who were fair and beautiful to look upon, but at heart they were evil and wicked. They made the life of the good little girl very sad and lonely. "Why is this stupid goose to sit with us in the best room?" said the stepmother. "Those who eat should work. Send her into the kitchen," said the children of the stepmother. Then they took away all her nice clothes and gave her an ugly old dress and wooden shoes to wear. "Look at our fine princess now," said the sisters, and drove her into the kitchen. There the little girl had to stay and do the hard work from morning till night. Besides this, the sisters made her do all kinds of things, and at night, when she was worn and tired, she had no bed to lie upon. When it was cold, she crept close to the ashes in front of the warm fireplace, and at last she was so black and dusty that they called her Cinderella, or Little Cinders. One day, as the father was going to a fair, he asked his 2 stepdaughters what he should bring them for a present. "A beautiful dress," said the eldest. "A string of pearls," said her sister. "And you, Cinderella," said her father, "what will you have?" "Father," she answered, "please bring me the first twig that strikes your hat on the way home." The father brought for his stepdaughters a beautiful dress and a pearl necklace, and as he rode home through the wood, a hazel twig struck his hat, so he stopped, broke off the twig, and took it home with him. As soon as he reached home, he gave to his stepdaughters their presents and to Cinderella the twig from the hazel bush. She thanked him and went to her mother's grave, where she planted the twig. Now Cinderella went to her mother's grave so often and cried so much that her tears watered the twig, and it grew and grew until it became a beautiful tree. Every time she went to the tree, a little white bird would perch among its leaves and throw down whatever she wished for. It came about that the king was to give a grand ball, which was to last for 3 days. All the beautiful young girls in the land were invited to this ball, so that the king's son might pick out his bride from among them. When the 2 stepdaughters found that they were invited, they were filled with great joy. They called Cinderella to them and said, "Come and dress our hair, and trim our shoes with gold buckles, for we are going to the ball at the king's palace." When Cinderella heard this, she began to cry, for she would gladly have gone to the ball herself, so she went to her stepmother and begged that she might go also. "You, Cinderella," cried her stepmother, "covered as you are with dust and ashes, you go to a ball. Why, you have no dress nor dancing shoes." But Cinderella begged so hard to go that at last her stepmother said, "I have just thrown a dishful of peas into the cinders. If you can pick them all out in 2 hours, you shall go with us." Then Cinderella, who was a friend to all the birds of the air, went into the garden and cried, "Come hither, my birdlings, my little doves, to your friend. Cinderella is waiting for you, with bright eyes and claws and each sharp little beak. Soon all the round peas from the cinders will tweak." Then 2 white doves flew in through the kitchen window And by all the little birds who knew Cinderella came and, nodding their heads at her, began to pick and pick, until very soon they had picked every pea from the ashes, and the dish was full. Then the birds lifted their wings and flew away. Full of joy, the maiden carried the dish full of peas to her stepmother, thinking that now she could surely go to the ball. But her stepmother said, "No, Cinderella, you have no dress, you cannot dance, and they will only make fun of you." Still, Cinderella cried and begged so hard that her stepmother, to keep her quiet, threw 2 dishfuls of peas into the ashes and then told her she could go to the ball if she had all these peas picked out in 2 hours. She can never do that in time, thought the cruel woman as Cinderella ran away to the kitchen. But the maiden went again into the garden and called to her birds. "Come hither, my birdlings, my little doves too. Your friend Cinderella is waiting for you. With bright eyes and claws, and each sharp little beak, soon all the round peas from the cinders will tweak." Then the birds all flew down as before, and in less than an hour every pea was picked out and laid in the dishes. As soon as the birds had flown away, Cinderella carried the peas to her stepmother, thinking that now she would surely let her go to the ball. But her stepmother said again, "No, Cinderella, you have no dress nor shoes, and you cannot go." Then the cruel woman turned her back on the poor girl, and with her 2 proud children, she rode to the ball. There was no one at home now but poor Cinderella. So she went out to her mother's grave and cried, "Shake thy leaves, O little tree, with silks and laces cover me." Then the bird in the tree threw down a beautiful silk dress, covered with gold and silver, and a new pair of little golden slippers. In great haste, Cinderella put on these beautiful clothes and went to the ball. As she came into the ballroom, looking so beautiful in her rich dress and slippers, her stepmother and sisters did not know her. They had no idea that it could be Cinderella, who, they thought, was safe at home picking the peas from the ashes. The king's son at once took notice of the beautiful girl with the golden slippers, and at last he would dance with no other. If anyone came up to ask her to dance, he would say, "She is to dance with me." So Cinderella danced all the evening until it was time to go home. Then the prince said he would go with her, for he wished to find out where she lived. But Cinderella's good fairy took care that she should not be followed. Cinderella ran quickly back to the hazel tree, where she shook off her beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave. Then she put on her old kitchen clothes. The little white bird soon flew down and carried the dress away, while Cinderella went home to lie in the ashes. On the second evening, when the next ball was given, as soon as everyone had left the house, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shake thy leaves, O little tree, with silks and laces cover me." Then the bird threw down a far more beautiful dress than before, but with the same little golden slippers. When Cinderella came into the ballroom, the king's son could not take his eyes from her, so great was her beauty. And he would not dance with anyone else. If anyone came up to ask her to dance, he would say, "She is to dance with me." Again, when it was time to go home, the prince said that he would go with her. But Cinderella was so quick on her feet that he could not catch her. Running to her hazel tree as before, she left the ball dress on her mother's grave and put on her kitchen clothes. When her stepmother came home, Cinderella was lying near the ashes as usual. Then the third ball took place, and after the stepmother and her 2 daughters had driven away, Cinderella again went to her mother's grave and said to the tree, "Shake thy leaves, O little tree, with silks and laces cover me." Then the bird threw down the most beautiful dress of all, but with the same pair of little golden slippers. When Cinderella came into the ballroom in this dress, everyone stopped dancing to look at her. She was so beautiful. Again, the prince danced only with her, and if anyone else came for her, he would say, "This dance is mine." When it came time for Cinderella to leave, the prince again wished to go home with her, but she darted away from him and ran so quickly that he could not follow her. Now the king's son, In order to be sure to find out this time who the beautiful dancer was, had his servants put sticky pitch on the steps of these so that, as Cinderella ran away, one of her little gold slippers stuck fast to the steps, and she had to leave it behind. The prince himself picked it up. It was very, very small and made of pure gold. Then the prince had it cried all over the kingdom that he would marry no one but the maiden whom the slipper would fit. When the stepsisters heard this, they felt sure that they could wear the slipper, for they both had very small feet. Then the prince and his servant went from house to house with the slipper, and all the young maidens who had been at the ball tried it on, but it would fit none of them. At last the prince came to the house where Cinderella lived. First, the eldest sister took the slipper and tried, but it would not go on. The second sister also tried the little golden slipper, and she pulled and tugged, but her foot was too large. "Have you no other child?" asked the prince of Cinderella's father. "None," he said, "except a child of my first wife, little Cinderella. She could by no means be your bride." "Send for her," said the prince. The stepmother answered, "Oh no, I dare not let you see her. She is much too dirty." But the prince ordered Cinderella to be sent for, so at last they called her in. After washing her hands and face, Cinderella came in and bowed to the prince, who gave her the golden slipper. She seated herself, took off the heavy wooden shoe from her left foot, and quickly put on the golden slipper. Then, as she lifted her head and looked at the prince, he knew that she was the beautiful maiden who had danced with him at the ball, and he cried, "At last I have found my bride." The stepmother and the two sisters were white with rage, but the prince took Cinderella on his horse and rode off with her to his castle, and they were happy forever after. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And remember, every story has a twist waiting to be discovered. What will the next one be?